Welcome everybody to another episode of the Live Your Purpose podcast. I'm your host, John Morgan Jr. Man, happy New Year to everybody first and foremost. You know, before we even get into who our special guest is for today, again, I want to reiterate that happy New Year, happy 2021. I know the majority of us are happy to be out of 2020 finally, but we're only a weekend. If you've been watching the news and watching the media, we already seeing how crazy, 2020 is looking so far. So who's to say that this year is not going to be any crazier than 2020? But regardless, man, it's good to see another year. It's good to see another day. And it's wonderful to be back on the pod, man. And for those of you who are just now joining us, this is your first time checking in with us on the Live Your Purpose podcast. The Live Your Purpose podcast is a podcast in a space where we speak to entrepreneurs, Black entrepreneurs specifically, and we talk to them about their backstories, and specifically what they're currently doing today and how that's aligned and how that's correlated and connected to them specifically living their purpose. And we just have organic and authentic conversations where we are here to try to uplift, empower, and ultimately heighten the consciousness of people. That's what we're here to do. We're here to have fruitful conversations to help and serve one another. So thank you for checking in with us. Thank you for supporting the podcast. Available on YouTube, available on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Please check us out. Like, subscribe. Please do that. Continue to support the merch. Thank you for everybody who's been supporting. I really appreciate that. So without further ado, we're gonna jump into who our guest is for today. We have Miss Guildia Lopez. Guildia is an entrepreneur. She is a boss. She is a great soul. She is the owner of Brothers and Briefcases. Guildia, man, I'm so happy you're here, man. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I am doing great. Yes. Happy New Year's, guys. I know 2020 was a little crazy. We might be in December 38th, 2020, the way things are, starting off. But listen, I think that one of the things that 2020 taught us is how to just kind of go with the time and roll with the punches. So we can't really focus on how things are starting because it could end better. But yeah, I'm happy for New Year. I'm happy to be alive. I'm happy to be doing this podcast. Just listen, we're breathing.
That's a fact. That's a
Yeah,
fact.
we're breathing.
Flesh. That's right. We're gonna make the most of what we got, and
Yeah.
be present in this moment. Because right now, this is all we have. This is the most important time because this is the only time we have right now. We gonna make the most of it. So listen, the way that we do it is, like I said, man, we want to highlight your backstory. We want to highlight what you're doing today. But I want to just kind of jump in a little bit to how are you? How's your spirit? Again, today is the 7th. We coming off of the day after where these fools in Rush Capitol Hill. How are you? How are you? How's your spirit?
I'm doing great, to be honest. I was gone for 75 days.
Lucky.
I was gone for 75 days, almost 11 weeks, and I feel great. I feel like I'm just like letting just myself live in the moment, in the present, not worry about what happened yesterday, not worry about what's gonna happen tomorrow. Just literally just enjoying every moment because again, what 2020 taught us is that tomorrow is not promised, and we have to really live and enjoy and make sure that we're living on purpose. So yeah, I feel great. Those 75 days did me well. I didn't do anything but align with who I am and how I want to live my life and who I want to surround myself with and continuously living my purpose and doing what I love. So I feel great. Yes, yesterday was chaotic. I would tell you that I came in and I was like, the ghetto. This is the ghetto. But, sometimes it's out of mind, out of sight, right? So if 2020 wasn't so tough for Black folks, would we have put it that much mind that all these white folks went inside Capitol Hill and did foolery, right? So, yes, the reality is that once we know the story of this country and how Black folks have always been treated, and how white folks act, right? Like, yes, there's some great white folks, but there's also some white folks who live in freaking parks and whatever. Like, we don't live that way per se. It's like out of mind, out of sight. Focus on what you could do, what you could, positive thoughts, positive, energy, positive vibration at all times. But yeah, I feel great. Like, I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, it happened. I'm sorry for the lady who got killed. I'm pretty sure your parents didn't teach you to break into
Right.
didn't teach you to break into Capitol Hill.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know what I
Yeah.
mean? I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
sorry for who if you left some kids behind. Like,
Hmm.
I hope they learn that, this type of hatred is not good.
Right.
Okay. Because that's how they feel. Seriously, that's how they feel. That's how they felt about George Floyd. That's how
Right.
they felt about Breonna Taylor.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Next,
Yeah.
you know.
The chicken's coming home to roost. It is sad. Um, but it's one of those things. This is not our fight. You know what I'm saying?
Sure enough.
That's just the facts of the matter. What were your thoughts like? You know what I'm saying, when you seen this? Because you in the tri-state area, you in New York, so you
Mhm.
closer to DC than I am. So what were your thoughts when you initially seen what was going on in DC and on Capitol Hill? Like, what was your initial thoughts?
So first, I was like I said, I was disconnected because I just came back.
Right.
And then of course, I got an Instagram. You don't gotta watch the news these days. You gotta get on social media.
That's it.
And I was like, what in the entire fuck?
Hmm.
Excuse my language.
No, you good.
I'm like, what the mind you, I'm coming from spending so much time with my dad, who's 83, right?
Hmm.
And his friends are that age. So they've experienced so much life.
Hmm.
He lived here for a long time before he retired. So they experienced so much of American living. And
Hmm.
of course, like living back home and all the things that have happened back home. And of course, racism and all of that exists anywhere there's black people. It exists in Africa. You know what I mean? Like, it exists.
Right.
So when I saw it yesterday, I was like, what the fuck? This is what motherfuckers want to come to America? Like, what in the Capitol Hill?
Hmm.
Like, who was the security? Day Day? Like, really? That
Yeah.
was my first thought, right? Then my second thought was like, wow, this is how much y'all want to throw a tantrum, because this is to show you that y'all no longer on top of the world. Y'all no longer the majority. Like, this is what it looks like when kids don't
That's
get
right.
their way
That's right.
and they have a tantrum.
That's right.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy to me. Like, and then my third thought was, you know what? This ain't got nothing to do with us, girl.
Hmm.
Let them folks. Then when I saw when the lady got shot, I'm like, let them folks deal with that,
Yeah.
right? But also to teach us as American people not to allow hatred to get in the way anymore, because that's how we ended up with Orange Man.
Hmm.
Y'all was so mad that we had a black president for 8 years that y'all couldn't even fathom having a female president,
Right.
and y'all have Orange Man.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
And yes, we all know politics, we all know economics, we know that the president really doesn't do anything, but sign papers. We all know that. We know that we have to vote for our locals. We know all of that. However, what he did was allow racism to be in the front when the biggest person, that when the president is out here talking racist stuff, that person in the backyard in
Yeah.
Tennessee or in
Yeah.
Mississippi, they're like,
Yeah.
oh, the president is talking like this, I could talk like this.
Yeah.
Because ain't nobody gonna do it. He ignited the light.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
He's empowering the voiceless of his base.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah,
I'm saying? And
yeah.
that becomes dangerous. First off, I didn't even know the severity of what was taking place. Like, I
Talk
was
about
to
it.
the barbershop and I just seen people just kind of like sending me pictures of them like climbing down a wall. I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, it didn't make sense. And literally, as I'm in the barbershop, more and more people is talking about it. And I'm like, yo, they are raiding Capitol Hill. Like, it was it
Hmm.
was it was mind blowing. It didn't even
Hmm.
really like
Hmm.
hit me until yesterday evening, like exactly what was taking place. Um, and truthfully, I wasn't surprised by
Why
any
would
of it.
we?
Um, I I think that there was some cahoots, set in there. I think there was a lot of inside jobs going on in there, but regardless, I think that this is the karma that America has asked for, and it is time for white folks, and like we spoke a little bit before, before we started. This is white supremacy's last reign, and it's time for them to see their antics on main stage and just repeat it and over, in the media. It's time for them to see that,
Yeah.
and it was
It's
sad to see.
it's amazing to me, coming from like a third world country in American eyes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how we don't even behave this way, and we are in poverty.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, America is luxury.
Mm-hmm.
America is privilege.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that the most privileged, right, white folks, act this way when they don't get things their way is crazy to me.
Right.
It's crazy to me. Like,
Right.
like when Biden won, my aunt was all excited. My dad was all excited. And we talking about 73, 80, 83 old. They were excited. And my father said, "Oh man, he's gonna give a hard time leaving the White House." And I'm like, "Yeah, he's going to have a tantrum." That's what I said.
Right.
I never expected that it would be like this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, I get it. You're mad, Trump supporters, blah blah blah, white supremacy. I get it. But aren't you Americans? Don't y'all respect, your law? Don't you respect your flag? Like, why would you go to Capitol Hill? Like,
Yeah.
what was that supposed to prove?
It was a hypocritical gesture.
Move, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And the whole, even from the stance of like Blue Lives Matter, or just having this stance,
Yeah.
protecting law and order, and just this force behind
Mm.
policing and whatnot. That was a hypocritical act against all of that. You know what I'm saying? In a matter of a couple hours. But regardless, though, like I said, man, I truly believe that this is America's karma, and in its own, its own way. But this don't have nothing to do with us. So let's just sit
Nope.
back, eat our popcorn, and and watch these fools. You know what I'm saying? Play it out, because it's damn sure
Yeah.
on display.
I just pray that
Go ahead.
uh, the 20th is not another shit show. Like, it's crazy to me, right? How America, again, is somewhere that a lot of other folks want to come from different countries. Yet the past 4 years, we've been a shit show. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure other countries are laughing at us and looking at us like these fools,
Yeah.
because we've been a shit show.
Yep. 100%.
Shit show.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Listen, you touched on being gone for 75 days. Tell it, where were you, and just exactly, like, what was this trip like? Did you plan on being gone for this long? Did you just kind of extend it? Like, what went on in this trip? Because you say, you feel settled, you feel grounded, you feel at peace. That, I'm sure that's helping you cope with a lot of the anxiety and just
Yes.
shit that's just going on over here.
Yeah.
Just talk to us a little bit about your trip.
Okay, so I don't know if but I was born in Guatemala, so
Mm-hmm.
I go home often. But this was the first time since I left at 9 years old, that I stood for this long. I usually go for 10 weeks. I mean, for 10 days, 2 weeks. But this is the longest I've stood. Originally, my trip was only for 6 weeks. I said, you know what, Guildia, COVID took a hit on everything that I wanted to do for 2020, right? So I had a lot of things planned, but and it didn't cause me any anxiety. It just made me uneasy, and not necessarily for me. It made me uneasy because I wanted to see my dad, right? I wanted to spend some time with him, because before it was easy to just be like, I'm just gonna go home for a week and be back, right? So um I wanted to release. It's a lot of things that have been happening personally. Like, my mom passed away 2019. So last year turned a year and we wasn't able to celebrate her the way we wanted to because of COVID. So I wanted to release, thank you. I wanted to release. I wanted to make sure that I stayed grounded with my purpose with Brothers and Briefcases because I felt myself shifting. I felt myself uh, beating myself down as if the world wasn't shut down. You know what I mean? Like, so I wanted to release. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna go home for 6 weeks. This is gonna be my time. I'm not gonna do any work. It's just gonna be me. I'm just gonna relax. I'm just gonna do what I have to do. Right. I get home right before my father's birthday, and 2 days after I get home, my father starts feeling ill, and I'm like, was this God? Did God send me down here? Like, although I was coming here for my own selfish reasons, was this the reason? Right? Because as children, we serve our parents some way and somehow,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
Is this part of my doing? Is this
Right.
my serving my dad?
Right.
Especially because we've never lived together. My father and I have never lived together.
Mm.
In my 37 years of life, we've
Mhm.
never lived together. So I'm like, okay, his sciatic nerve started hurting him to the point that he couldn't move for 4.5 weeks.
Mm.
Just literally just laying down. He couldn't walk. He couldn't sit. He was in pain. So then I started looking at it like, okay, maybe this is part of the journey I came here for. Maybe this is me serving my dad. Maybe this is me spending time with my dad to continue to unpack some of the trauma that I've been healing.
Mm.
Right. So
Mhm.
I just started going into this whole thing like, appreciate it, Guildia. Appreciate this moment. I forget about yesterday. I appreciate the reason why you're here. Thank God that you're able to be here for this long. Thank God you was able to come, right, and be with your dad. Because imagine if you weren't here, maybe he would have not made it, or maybe he would have to hospitalize himself, right? So the journey just became that way. And after he got better, of course, it's like thanking me for being there, thanking me for allowing myself to stay for longer because I extended my trip. Like I said, I was supposed to just be there for 6 weeks, and I extended it another month. Um, and just I felt like this was the piece of my puzzle that I needed to continue to unpack the trauma that was caused as a child, right? Because I've never lived with him. So to get to see how much of me, what I mean, how much of him I am, and vice versa,
Yeah.
to get to experience him in a way that I probably would have never got to experience had not COVID didn't happen. Like it's
Right.
always a blessing in something.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Um, and just shutting and unpacking and meditating and being still. Like if we think about it, we've never been still. Like I came here when I was 9, and school and high school and college
Yep.
and
Yep.
work and business, like we've never been still.
Yep.
And just to be able to be still, like I was so still that I started being afraid. Like I was like, what?
Mm. Mm.
Because it was so unfamiliar to me. Like
Yeah.
meditation, I was like, am I going to the other world?
Yeah.
Like, am I
Yeah.
dying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was so crazy how my body started feeling like if I was in the matrix. Like, I started feeling like an out of body experience every time I just kind of stood still and just listen to the birds and listen and calm my mind, because our mind is always running, because we're always running. That, my birthday is December 31st. So on my birthday, I kind of just like walked down the beach and sang and danced and cried and like got in the ocean, and just everything that I wanted to like shed and leave there, I left it there. I wrote some of the things that I wanted to like leave behind and threw it in the ocean. And I was just like, okay, now time for new beginnings.
Right. 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 Yeah. That's what's up, man. That's beautiful. Is your father the only? Is he the only part of your person in your family that's originally from Guatemala, or the rest of your family from Guatemala as well?
No, both of my parents are from Guatemala. I was born in Guatemala. It's so funny because there's 6 of us. My father has 6 kids. My older brother was born in Guatemala. My twin sisters were born in Belize. My brothers after that were born here, and then I was born in Guatemala. It's so weird.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
It's so weird. Every time I tell people that, like, I'm technically the only child. Like, I'm the only one my mom and my dad had together. Seriously, I'm the only one my mom and my dad had together. And then my mom remarried. My mom married and had my sisters. So it's so weird
You know,
because
I resonate with that. I have, damn, let me count. I have 7 sisters and 2 brothers, but out of my mother and my father, I am their only child. But my mother has my older sister by her father, and I have 3 stepsisters, and my father has 6 more children
mm-hmm.
elsewhere. You know what I'm saying? So I
Yeah,
definitely,
yeah,
yeah, I resonate. And I feel you 100%.
yeah. It's weird because my dad was here when I was born. My mom came when I was a kid. I didn't come here until I was 9. So I really didn't meet my mom until I was 7. So my grandma raised me with my cousin, who, as you know, you have a child. Once kids start talking, they start calling mom. I call my cousin mom because she's always been my mom, right? She raised me with my grandma. Um, so like I've always had 2 moms, you know what I mean? Like all of my life.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I mean, it's it's crazy. But I was glad to spend that much time with him, to get to know him, to get to know myself, to see my reflection in him. Because my mother used to always be like, "You like your father?" I'm like, "Really? I don't see that." You know what I mean? It's always good to do that, and good to kind of like see why I wanted to start Brothers and Briefcases, right? Because he is one of the inspiration of why Brothers and Briefcases was
Well,
started. So.
tell me what did you learn about yourself in 2020? Like just spiritually, mentally, like what did you learn about
Mm.
yourself?
What I've learned about myself is um,
How did you grow? How did you grow and just, continue to develop?
patience,
Okay.
patience, how to give myself grace. I learned how to be kinder to myself. I learned that sometimes when we're in struggle mode, we don't allow ourselves to feel, So I felt in 2020 all of my feelings, happiness, sadness, worry, anxiety, all of that. And I left it just in the ocean.
Did you was there any emotion that you found that you do not like to sit with?
um, Sadness. I don't
Why,
like to feel sad.
why is that?
Because I like to be happy. Sadness makes me go into a spiral of the other emotions. Like
Mm,
sadness could turn into anger. Sadness could turn into feeling sorry for yourself. Sadness could turn into grief,
yeah.
right? Like I feel like I had enough grief in 2019 losing my mom and seeing her like deteriorate from her sickness. That I'm like, I don't necessarily want to feel sad. Like I don't want to. I know I have to like sit with all my feelings, but I don't want to feel sad because I
Yeah.
don't want to start thinking about other things.
Yeah.
Because sadness again is close to grief, and now you're grieving. And I know that grief is an ongoing process, but I rather just think about all the great things and all the happy things than just be sad.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's interesting because grief is one of those processes that there it isn't linear. Grief
Hmm.
is continuously up and down. It's different
Hmm.
every day. No emotion continues to stays the same. My mother transitioned 5 6 months ago. In
My
2020.
condolences.
Thank you on her 61st birthday.
Wow.
Yeah. So for me, what I've learned about grief specifically is that it literally looks different all the
For
time,
every,
and it looks
I
different
mean,
for everybody.
hmm I mean, even like between my sisters and I, it looks so different with
Yeah,
all 3 of us. And
yeah,
I don't know if because before my mom got sick, I was already going to therapy, and I knew that I had to forgive her for a lot of the things that she did to me, a lot of the shortcomings that damaged me and created trauma in my life. Like I knew I had to forgive her for that. So I don't know if that had to do with uh, having grieving her the way I've been grieving her, because it's different from my sisters. But yeah, grief is an ongoing process. It's an up and down process, and yeah, I don't like to feel sad. I like to laugh and dance and be happy. Like, who likes to feel sad?
have you found yourself processing the trauma that you experienced with your mother differently after she's transitioned as before than when she was here? Like, is it different? Is it different processing the trauma that you experienced with your mother now that she's no longer here than when she was?
The first year was harder. Her first year of death was harder because now I'm like, how can you process a trauma or heal from a trauma that someone created that no longer is here? Because and you can't have a conversation with that person.
Right,
Like,
right.
how the hell do you do that?
Yeah.
Right. So the first couple of like the first 6 months, I ain't gonna lie to you, I was in the matrix. Like I was, this was me. The
Yeah,
first 6 months,
yeah.
like everybody was crying, like all type of stuff. I was like this for 6 months. I was like, this shit really happened. Like they just told us May she's dying, July she was dead. Like
So what was her illness?
liver failure.
Mm.
You know, so and then once I started getting off of my you know what I mean, tone, then I was like, how the fuck can I process and heal from this trauma that she created and I can't even have a conversation with her?
Right.
How do we do that? She's not here, you know? So we just take a L because the trauma that my father created, I could have a conversation with him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I either take his apology or take it for what it is, or continue to have the conversation until I feel like I'm healing. But with her, what do I do? Because she was already not talking before she got ill.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm here unpacking and healing, and you gone, right? So those are the thoughts that you start having, like, yo, this is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So it was tough. The first year I was like, but again, right? I think God, the universe, whatever people want to call it, have a way of telling us you're going to be okay. Because that was also part of the reason I probably stayed in Guatemala for 10 weeks, right? Because I wasn't supposed to spend my birthday in Guatemala. I was supposed to come back, right? But on the 30th, I took a nap, woke up, and I woke up sad, like literally sad. I was like, yo, what the fuck is happening? In tears. I woke up in tears. I was like, yo, why am I crying? Like, I don't feel sad.
Yeah.
And I started thinking, like, before she passed away, I was in Guatemala for my birthday. And
Mm.
she had this whole thing of like feeling jealous of the type of relationship that my dad and I have.
Mm.
And she called me and she's like, happy birthday. And you love your father more than you love me. And I was just so confused. Like, how can you wish me a happy birthday and ruin it at the same time? Right. And that's why I woke up feeling sad, like, dang, yo,
Yeah,
she cursed me out.
yeah,
She's never gonna be able to like experience the type of person I am, the type of woman I've become for whatever trauma she experienced, right? Because that's also whatever she was experiencing that she wasn't, ready to unpack. And a couple of months after that, she's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally a couple of months after the curse out,
Right.
she's gone. So it was just another part of the unpacking and the releasing that I needed to do. And just like I said, leave it in the ocean. Left it right there.
Yeah, that's good though, man. It sounds like you had a pretty healthy process
Hmm.
under the circumstances.
I did. I would say that I did. Because I forgave.
Y-
My mother was struggling to breathe on her last day, and I was just like, Mom, I forgive you. I'm not kicking you out, but you're struggling. If this is God's will, like we're gonna be okay.
right.
So I
Yeah,
think forgiveness was a great part of it.
yeah. One of the things that I did with my mother before she passed away was, and even before she got ill, my mother passed away from pancreatic cancer. So
Hmm.
even before she really kind of felt like terminally ill, I would try to have these conversations of substance with my mother,
Hmm.
and she
Hmm.
just wasn't able really to go there. And it really wasn't at
Mm.
a fault of hers. It's just where she was in her consciousness. She just wasn't
Hmm.
able to, again, she
Hmm.
wasn't able to go there. So it forced me to accept her for where she was and
Hmm.
no longer judge her and try to force her to do something that she wasn't. And that
Hmm.
allowed me to forgive her much easier because
Hmm.
I think in my experience, I think sometimes us as children of our parents, we expect so much of them, and we want them to be so much of what it is that they instilled in us. And
Mm-hmm.
really, like, man, your parents just regular ass people, man. You know what I'm saying?
Legit,
They've been,
that were used as vessels.
yeah, they've been, and another part of it is they've been through shit that we don't necessarily understand. You know,
Yes.
they came up in a time in an era and under different rules and regulations and reigns and things like that where, you know, we just don't understand. We just don't
Mm-hmm.
understand that plight. So
Mm-hmm.
one thing that I learned and that just helped me, you know, in my process of forgiving is a lot of empathy.
Yes.
You know, with my mother. But the biggest thing was really just accepting her as who she
Mm-hmm.
was. You know, that
Yeah.
that went a long way for
Also, like, I'm a big advocate of basically breaking generational curses.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I wasn't gonna do the same thing that she did. You know, I was talking to my aunt about therapy before I left Guatemala, and I was just like, you know, it's crazy how I decided to go back to therapy because I was like, if I have a husband and I have children, I don't necessarily want to function
Yeah,
the way we've been functioning. Like, I don't want to bring a child. I don't want to be arguing with my husband about the fact that we're not emotionally mature, that we can't articulate our thoughts properly. Like, I just don't want to do that. And then a couple of months and being into therapy one more time, my mom gets sick. So, you know, everything just kind of like happens for
well,
a reason.
how'd you initially even get begun on your journey of being intentional about your healing and going to therapy? How did it start?
I wanted to make sure that the feelings that I was feeling were actually actual feelings, not a wall. Right. So I was like, Gildia, are you really not upset? Or just putting up a facade? Like, Gildia, are you crying because you're sad, or you're crying because you're disappointed, or you're Gildia, are you sleeping all day because you're not depressed? Or, you know what I mean? You like to sleep or you're depressed. Like, I wanted to make sure that the feelings that I was feeling were actual feelings,
Yeah.
not a wall that I put up so much that I didn't even realize that it was a wall.
Mm, mm. So you were
Hmm.
just kind of you were in tune with yourself and just say, you know what,
Hmm.
this is something that I want to, you know, just take a little bit deeper look into.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah. Now, did you confide in anybody when you went on this journey? Did you tell anybody that you were going to therapy, or was it just a thing where you was just like, you know what, I'm gonna just how'd you go about it?
um, you know, we always talk about therapy, right?
Mhm.
Everywhere. I just kind of asked. I feel
That's a new thing. That ain't always been.
well, Brothers and Briefcases is about to be 4 years old, so we've always talked about therapy and Brothers and Briefcases.
Okay, okay,
Always, that's one of our main topics.
got it.
Um, Especially with Black and brown men. But for me, I just started asking folks like, "Do y'all know any therapists? Do y'all know any therapists?" I want to get a list of therapists to be able to, use as a reference when somebody asks me. And I just emailed this therapist. Is as you know, therapists like dating. I just emailed this therapist. I emailed a few, but this one specifically, I felt like we connected. And I was just like, listen, I ain't got no insurance. I'm paying out of pocket. Please don't tell me to go in boondocks because it's not gonna happen. And she was so impressed with how committed I was to my healing process that she's like, "Bet we could start on Tuesday. I think it was like a Tuesday. Can you come in?" And I'm like, "Sure." And it was good for the first year, but then I felt like we got too comfortable, so now I'm looking for another therapist.
I got
Because I felt like now I was talking to one of my homies. I'm
you.
like,
Yeah,
well, what am I paying you out of pocket
yeah,
for?
yeah, 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 yeah.
You know?
So you started Brothers in Briefcases before you even started going to therapy.
Yeah.
So like how did the idea of just like again being intentional about healing and and just healing in general, how did that where did that come from? Like what were some of your life experiences that say, you know what, I want to be intentional about focusing on black men's healing? Like what happened?
All right. So,
Spill the beans. Tell me what happened.
so okay, the name Brothers and Briefcases came to me in a dream. And I kind of wrote it down. I was like, what the hell is this? What am I going to do with it? Wrote it down, put it inside of a book. At that moment, I had created Visions to Life Events, which is an event and production company, right?
Mm-hmm.
Event production company. Um, because I had lost my job. Or Cartier, I have a background in luxury goods and fashion. So I was like, I like to do events. I like to do production. I like to put things together. Let me just get a LLC. So Visions to Life was created. The day I launched Visions to Life events, I did a women's panel
Mm.
called Hustlers and Heels.
Okay.
And
Hustle
uh,
the heels.
yeah, Hustlers
Okay.
and
All
Heels.
right. Okay. Okay. Okay.
So I did Hustlers and Heels, and I was like, okay, this is great. This is wonderful. Then um, all of the killing of black and brown men became visual,
What year? What year
social
was this? What year was this?
2016,
Okay.
2017. It was Fernando Castillo. It was just back to back. I was like,
Yeah.
yo, what's happening? And
Mm-hmm.
at the time I was dating this guy. We had a long distance relationship. He lives in DC, and my anxiety was on 1,000. Like if he didn't call back from like, he was in medical school. So if he didn't call me or he didn't call back or whatever, like I was like, yo, what is happening?
Right.
I
Right.
started checking on my brothers more often. I started checking on my boys more often. I was like, all right, Guildia, what's happening right now? And it was my, again, being intentional, feeling that, sitting with that feeling, which was anxiety. Like, I'm like, they're not even killing folks for doing crimes. They're killing black men for being black.
Mm-hmm.
Like, legit just killing black men because they're fearful of them. I am surrounded by black men. I am a black woman.
Yeah.
So what can you do, Gildia? What can you do about this? How can you fix this anxiety? And that's when it came to me. I called my friend at 3 o'clock in the morning. I was like, yo, I'm about to do a whole platform for black and brown men. She was like, what? I said, yep. There's so many women empowerment things that there's not enough spaces for black men to be able to be vulnerable, for black men to create brotherhood, for black men to sustain brotherhood. I'm going to create the platform. She was like, okay, what you need from me? And I was like, yo, remember the name that came into my dream? I'm going to call it Brothers and Briefcases. We're going to highlight black men from different walks of life. We're going to talk about all the greatness that they've done, but we're also going to talk about real life stuff,
Mm-hmm.
mental health, financial, all of that, all of the stuff that black, even being the token black man in corporate America, all the things that black men want to unpack, all the things that black men want to release. I'm going to create a safe space for them to be able to do so, because there's enough safe spaces for black women to do it, right? So if we always unpacking, if we always healing, and we want black husbands, but they're over here not even able to be vulnerable, not even able to articulate their thoughts in a mature manner, where we going? We have to be able to be aligned together. So that's how that came about.
Yeah. 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 That's super dope. Yeah. That's amazing. Um. When you initially started off, like, was there any level of blowback from anybody? Like, man, we don't. Why is a woman starting this platform?
So the first event, like 90% of them were my friends. Again, I know black men who are successful, right?
Yeah.
So I called up my man, I called up my boys, and then I met the founders of Black Men Smile in Atlanta. And legit, I just told them like, I ain't got no money. We ain't got no Instagram. We ain't got no website. But this is what I'm trying to do
Right.
on June on June 7th. Are you down?
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, yes, I love what you're doing. Da, da, da. A year after, I did receive a DM like, how can you create a space for black and brown men if you're a woman?
Mm.
I'm like, come to an event.
Right.
I would even, I will comp you your ticket.
Right.
Come to an event because you seem to need the help that we're providing, right? Because the reality is, because I am a woman, I've been able to curate this space enough to make black men be vulnerable to talk about their traumas, to talk
Yeah.
about being raped and being molested and being abused by their wives and
Yeah.
their girlfriends and their mamas. Like,
Right.
because I've curated such a safe space for black and brown men, And there's no other way that could have been done if it wasn't a woman behind it. You
Yeah.
know, we just have that sense in us. You know, we nurture us. This is what we do.
So the first event with your homeboys and your friends, how were they? Were they vulnerable? Were they open?
Yes.
Was it
Yeah,
okay? Good.
so that made me want to be like, okay, I'm
This
onto
works.
something.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And to be honest, like I had so many panelists on the first event. Legit, it was like eight of them. I was like, what am I doing? It was Chris, who I went to high school with, and then the founders of Black Men Smile, Devin and Carlton. Devin doesn't do Black Men Smile anymore. Um, Kels, Tim, Curtis, Purvis, and Michael. It was eight of them.
Damn.
But they meshed so well. They bounced off one another so well. They related to one another so well. They created brotherhood. Like to this day, they still like chatting it up. They still collaborating together. They still on some like that's my brother to this day. You know, and that's what makes me really, really happy that they were able to create such an amazing brotherhood. Um, that's probably gonna be forever.
Yeah.
I call them alumni, like we do in
Yeah,
college.
no, I'm with you. When I went on like your Instagram and your social medias for yourself and for Brothers and Briefcases, it looks terrific. It
Thank
looks
you.
like a safe space. With dudes is in there literally just spilling it. And
Hmm.
the one thing I mean, even just in my own experience, my homeboys and our cousins and things like that, like it is very rare for us to have curated spaces to be able to
Hmm.
share these things. Now
Hmm.
we are in a progressive society, so the conversations are becoming a little bit more normalized. I mean,
Hmm.
myself, I try to be a lot more intentional
Hmm.
to have these conversations with my friends, with my family, and things like that. So we are having these conversations, but it's still in private.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So for you to be able to create a space where people are doing this in public and it's all men, that's powerful.
Thank you. It takes me legit a day or two to process an event after it's done. Like, because they even surprised me. I'll be like, what's
Yo, I
happening right
talked to
now?
Ebony about it, and she was like, "Man, I went to the event just thinking like, I'm going to support my people or whatever. I had no idea I was walking into what I walked into, and she was like, man, there was guys in there really like having
Unpacking.
unpacking, having emotional responses and like really breaking down and things like that. And she was just like, that's how I knew that what was going on was really powerful.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I I'm just so thankful, right, uh for these Black men to be able to respect me and allow me to create a safe space for them and trust me with the process, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we do ask questions that might trigger. And one of the things that always try to have is either therapists in the panel or one of my alumni who are therapists or like psychologists coming back so
Mm-hmm.
that no one in the audience or in the panel could get triggered and go home with that
Yeah,
um, because we do talk about a lot of things that somebody might be just uh, burying it, and then we speak about it and it's triggering, and because that's the only way we all gonna heal as a community.
yeah, that's a fact. So set the stage for me. So
Okay.
are you mediating, the spaces? Like what put me in the mind frame of like if I wanted to come to a space and you was trying to sell me on it. So like tell me what it is.
Okay, so first I'll tell you this.
Okay.
For a long time, no one knew who was the founder of Brothers and Briefcases for a long
You
time.
kept it under wraps.
Yes, unless you came to an event. For a long time, no one knew. 2020 actually have put a face to the founder of
Was
Brothers and
that
Briefcases.
was that intentional? Was that intentional?
Yes, because because we couldn't do events, I went on live from April all the way to September,
Right,
right?
right.
So now everybody's seeing who's the founder of Brothers and Briefcases, right? But before that, unless you came to an event, or heard one of my interviews, you didn't know it was a woman behind Brothers and Briefcases. You knew it was a woman, you just didn't know who, right? So basically, this is what happens. Boom. The flyer, you're not gonna see me. I have a specific host for the event. Is usually 4 to 5 panelists, again from different walk of lives. We are in a very gentleman-like spaces. Every space that I've ever had an event is screams gentleman, screams safe space, screams like your grandma living room. You know what I mean? Extremes
Yeah,
very
yeah,
friendly. You
yeah.
know, you get greeted by a woman. My bartenders are always women.
Mm, mm.
Um, Food is like home cooked meal, your mama meal, so you can get comfortable. You know, drinks are always popping,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and music is rolling,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because that's what's gonna make you feel comfortable.
So it's a vibe for real.
Oh, it's a vibe.
Yeah,
It's a real vibe.
yeah.
Because I want everybody to feel comfortable. I want it to feel like home. I
Right.
want it to feel like if you want something to, if you have something to say, you want to have something to unpack, you have something to reveal, that you don't feel judged. You don't feel like somebody's looking at you sideways. This is a family.
Yeah, it ain't. It's not a lecture.
No, we
Yeah.
here to unpack. We
Mm.
here to have a conversation. Yes, I have a set of panelists, but this is a back and forth conversation.
Right.
Once we're done asking them the specific questions, it's open to everybody. Like, let's discuss now, you know? So it's a real vibe. After you've been vibing for about an hour and a half, we start the panel discussion again for 4 men, different walk of lives. We talk about all the great things that they do. Then we talk about all the craziness that's happening in the world. If we was having an event tomorrow, we would talk about Capitol Hill, right?
Right.
Um,
Right.
and I will specifically have a lawyer or a cop on the panel so we could discuss that, right? So what does that look like for Black folks? Why is it that it was easier for George Floyd to get killed for allegedly a fake whatever $20 bill, but they were able to raid Capitol Hill? So those are the type of conversations that we will have. And I'm blessed to be able to know lawyers and Black cops that are willing to, sit in this type of discussions. And then once we finish that, we open the discussion to the audience, and that's when the audience gets to ask whatever questions or whatever they like to discuss or, express. And after that, I open up the vibe again, right? Because you might want to talk to a panelist, or you might want to talk to somebody who shares something, and you don't want to do it in an open forum.
Right.
Um, yeah, and then gifts and all of that great stuff. I've been blessed to have a Mason sponsor, so y'all go away with nice gifts and stuff like that, and
Yeah, that's what's up.
nice photos. And everybody always asks me when they're gonna have the next one, and I'll be looking at them like, let me just let me feel this
Yeah,
first.
yeah. Let's play this out first.
Yeah, so that's what happens.
So, are there any women panelists at all?
No,
All,
I stopped doing hustlers and hills. Yeah,
wow.
I just felt like this was my calling, right?
Yeah.
I felt like this is what God wants me to do. Maybe Hustlers and Hills will come back, but right now I'm so focused on Brothers and Briefcases. I'm so focused on what's next for Brothers and Briefcases. Like, I have so many ideas and so many plans for Brothers and Briefcases.
So you know
Um,
what? This made me think of something that my therapist told me. My therapist told me, because my day-to-day job, I'm a social worker. I'm a social worker at a community mental health agency. Day to day, I work
okay,
in school-based services with families.
okay,
And we were just kind of just talking about some things. And I was just talking about just the stress of the job, just the
mm-hmm,
day-to-day grind of the job. But I was also talking about how it's very much aligned with my purpose and my calling. And she
mm-hmm,
said to me something that I never forget, that stuck with me, and it's resonate with me what you saying right now. She was like, John, we don't just accidentally fall into this line of work.
mm-hmm,
You know what I'm saying? Our
mm-hmm,
our life experience, the shit that we have been through, is what has, you know, ultimately led us to, serve in this way. So
mm-hmm.
I'm curious to know, like, what were some of Guildia's experiences that really led for you to want to serve in this way specifically?
Um, I I'll say two things.
Okay.
I not seeing my father and my brothers be vulnerable is a part of it. Um, and listening to my friends tell me why they don't be vulnerable, right? And because they felt like there was no safe space for them. Um, Third thing, like I said before, there's so many women empowerment spaces and so many Black women wanting Black men to have Black families. Yet there's not a space for Black men to be able to be vulnerable and unpack and heal, to show up in an amazing way for this Black woman who's been healing and unpacking herself, right? So
Yeah.
I, again, like I said earlier, one of the reasons that decided to go back into therapy is because I wanted to make sure that I was healed for my future husband and my future children. I was intentional about that.
Right.
So I believe that's the reason why this is the type of work I do. Like, I really want the world to see how amazing Black men are, and they haven't even been allowed to hit the highest potential.
Right.
You
Yeah,
know?
that's beautiful. So you really are like bridging the gaps to help like build up Black families.
Yeah.
Like you really,
My friend, it's
really
so
are.
funny because my friend is like, if these ladies don't go ahead and call you the plug, they could just
That's a
they
fact.
could just go
That's
to
a
your
fact.
event.
Yeah, yeah.
He's
You
like,
got
they
you
could
got them
go to
lined
your
up. Yeah,
like, they could just go to your event. They're gonna find them a brother who is successful, a brother who out here sharing his feelings and unpacking and going to therapy. You
yeah,
know, so yeah.
yeah. That's dope. So like how has, because ultimately like this is a business, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how, and I seen you transition from doing the panels to doing the IG live videos and just
Yeah.
doing the virtual interviews. Like you said, that's how people found out who who the creator was. But how has your business been impacted due to COVID?
So I had to all right, so 2021 we was going on tour. We had a amazing sponsorship deal that was gonna
In 20
cover
in did,
in
did
2020. 2020.
Okay.
2020 we was going on tour. I mean, it might still happen in 2021. We spoke about it, but
So
COVID is disrespectful.
you were planning on going on tour in 2020.
Yes, we already had it lined up. It
Wow.
was Philly. It was
Wow.
Philly, DC, New York, Atlanta, North Carolina.
Damn.
Boom. We had it. We had the sponsorship deal. We had it.
Damn.
We had the panels. We had the panelists. We had it. Then COVID happened. Um, then I just decided to create more merch. I'm like, we got to make money somewhere. Somehow
Yeah.
I have to sustain it, right?
Right.
Especially because, of course, Guildia Lopez decides to be an 100% entrepreneur in 2020.
You jumped 2 feet in.
You know what I mean? In
Yeah.
2020, I was like, oh, I could do this. We going on tour. Da, 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 da. I could
Right.
do this, and then boom, it happens.
Mm.
So going on lives, really helped us gain following. The beginning of 2020, we had like maybe 1,100 followers. Now we got like 2,000, you know. Um, so it helped us get following. It helped us get recognition. I had two write-ups last year, for Brothers and Briefcases. And I created more merch. Um, and I was able to have conversations with folks on IG Live who don't live in New York,
Mm-hmm.
or who don't live in the
That's a
state,
fact. Yeah.
yeah, or who don't live in the states that we were gonna go on tour.
Yeah.
Right. So although we didn't go on tour, I created amazing relationship with some amazing men. Had some during May for Mental Health Awareness Month. I think it was one of our most impactful months. We unpacked, we cried, on IG Live, we we was able to help some folks, some black men get into therapy, you know. So it was great. Yeah, it was great. 2020 was a punch, but we made it. We made it.
Have
We
you
saw the rainbow.
yeah, have you seen, due to the work that you do with Brothers in Briefcases, have you seen how that's translated to the impact of the relationship with your brothers and with your father?
Hmm.
Yeah.
So being home now with my dad, like I was even like having conversations with him. You know, he old school. He 83. He old school.
Woo.
You know,
Yeah, yeah.
he old school. He was raised in, Guatemala. When he came to the States, he was already in his 30s. He already had 3 kids, at the time. So even the tone that he has, and I know he doesn't mean any harm by it, but even the tone that he has, and I'm like, Dad, you're speaking to me as if I am your woman, or I am your
Right,
servant, I am your
right,
child.
right.
Like your tone. And
Yeah.
I get it, right? But your tone, So even now, like even my brothers, like having conversations, because I'm really attached to my dad. But again, everything that I do in my life is intentional. I'm attached to him. I make sure that we have an amazing relationship because I was able to articulate my thoughts to him of the things that he did
Yep.
when I was younger.
Yep.
So my brothers look at it as, oh my God, your dad is favorite. It's like, no, I created this relationship. We have such an amazing relationship because we created it.
Yep.
So even my brothers, I'm like, you ever thought about going to therapy? Because a lot of the anger that you have, the way you speak about certain things, is because of the trauma that you created, that was created for you as a child.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's, I mean, overall, not only with my brothers, but my homeboys, friends that I've had since I was 10 years old, with my homeboys, ex-boyfriends,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like anybody, my nephew's 13, so he's transitioning to that young adult.
Mm.
I'll not give you buck. I'll be like, baby boy,
Right.
hey,
Right. Right.
hey,
Right. Right.
let me
Right.
talk to
Right.
you real quick,
Yeah. Yeah.
So even myself, I've transitioned, I've transformed, being able to be around such amazing men, right? And men who are willing to continue to grow and continue to heal. I've transformed.
What have you learned since doing Brothers in Briefcases and just doing this work of service? What have you learned about black men that you just didn't know before you were in these spaces?
They yearn brotherhood, but society have taught them that um, there has to be separation between them,
Mm.
especially in our culture.
Right.
But black men yearn brotherhood. Black
Yeah, yeah.
men yearn, y'all yearn it. It's
Yep.
something that, that
It's
y'all
like
want
it's
it.
like my it's like my wife said. She was like she always say she like niggas love they niggas. Like it just
She ain't lie.
yeah,
She
yeah,
ain't
that's right.
lie.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, y'all yearn it, but I see it. I see it in the hood. I see it when we out. It's just like, y'all don't even want to say what up. Y'all don't even want to like give, the other person a compliment, as if this like cold in the black community, like, nah, yo, we always gonna be tough. He ain't your man, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
but y'all yearn brotherhood.
Yeah.
Y'all yearn it.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of black men that come and hear other black men talk and relate to the next black man and create relationship with that next black man is just amazing.
Yeah, that's I would 100% agree with that. Man, it's so crazy because in the culture in the culture that we come in, just speaking from my own experience, I
Hmm.
grew up playing sports, right?
Hmm.
I didn't have brothers until I got older. My
Hmm.
brothers are much younger than me, so I had sisters.
Hmm.
My father struggled with substances for the majority of my life, so it was just me and my mother and my sister. But just
Hmm.
coming up playing sports and my relationship with my first cousins, those were my, you know,
Brothers.
that was those were my brothers, and that that
Hmm.
was that was my brotherhood. And as I got older, I really seen the value of it. But coming up in the culture of of oppression, of racism, where we are sent these messages to not really love and not really respect one another, not really to empathize with one another, really to tear each other down. I would even find myself in situations where I wasn't pouring into the relationships. I was subconsciously, and I really didn't know it, I was tearing down those relationships, whether that was me, just being mean, honestly, and not really being a good listener. But as I've gotten older, went to therapy and just began a little bit more intentional about my healing, man, I empathize so much more, with the cats who look just like me, because I know, I know that something has happened, that has led us to becoming as cold as we are.
It's crazy. Having like different generation of men, right? So my
Yeah,
father's 83, one of my brothers is 46, and then I'm 37. My father's era, they have so much brotherhood. Like
yeah,
my father is still friends with his friends from like teenage time. You
mm-hmm,
know what I mean? Like when
mm-hmm,
I see my father and his friends like chill and laugh and like have their drinks and talk about their when they used to play football and all of that.
mm-hmm,
It's just like, so where did the disconnect happen? Like,
mm-hmm.
how is this 83-year-old man still like kicking it with his friends from when he was 20, and here's this 30-year-old, 25-year-old man who don't even have the desire to like create brotherhood. You know what I mean? Like, where did that disconnect happen? And I continue to pray that Brothers in Briefcases continue to be that platform for Black men to gain brothers, gain brothers, and create brotherhood.
Yeah, I think a lot of that was impacted through the war on drugs and mass incarceration.
Mm-hmm,
You know what I'm
mm-hmm,
saying? When cats started going to jail, and shit, even before that, well, the war on drugs and just the 70s and the Vietnam War and things like that. When cats was coming back to the States, but they had substance abuse problems, then they started going to jail. Then the 80s rolled around and the crack era hit, and you would go to jail, and you would go to jail for the little bit of nothing, and you would be there for so long.
yeah.
The dynamic shifted,
Mm-hmm,
and that had a trickle down effect on all of
mm-hmm,
us.
mm-hmm,
Because you're right, man. When I look at my grandfather now, granted, there's a lot of trauma in those areas, in
mm-hmm,
those
mm-hmm,
areas too. Because like you said, the tone in which they speak, they don't
mm-hmm.
they don't even realize it a lot of times. They're like, man, it's a lot of like misogynistic and
Yes.
sexist rhetoric. Like y'all don't even see what y'all
Well,
doing, but
and the crazy thing is, like, my dad is the baby of my grandma kids, right? So he was babied.
yeah,
He was loved and spoiled, but he still has this like,
yeah.
and I don't know it's because he plays sports and he's handsome and all these ladies was like on him. But I was like, baby boy, I'm your
yeah,
child.
yeah, yeah,
Let's get that together.
yeah. 100%. What is what what's your goal? Like, what is your long term play? With Brothers in Briefcase, what do you hope to see? 5, 10
Um,
years down the line.
so worldwide, like, I want a Brothers and Briefcases in Africa. I want a Brothers and Briefcases in every country in the world, every state in the United States. I want a hub for Brothers and Briefcases. I don't want brothers to wait for us to have an event for them to be able to create brotherhood, and create relationships. I want to be able to have a hub for them that they could just come at any time,
Mhm.
hold meetings and or have just a drink with their brother. I want many Brothers and Briefcases. I want to work on the youth. So by the time they get to the adult Brothers and Briefcases, we've done most of the work.
Right.
Um, so much. I mean, we might be on TV. Like, there's so much, that I want. It's so much briefcases to unpack that we could literally continue to grow to the end of time.
Yeah, man. I was watching one of your IG lives, and one of the guys, I can't even think of his name off the top of my head, man. But anyway, you had asked him, you said, how has the process of therapy and healing been? And he was like, it's been wonderful, but it's been messy.
Yeah,
And I thought that was just so profound and so powerful,
Mm-hmm.
because that is the part of therapy and healing that is not talked about. Um,
Yeah.
that's the part that's not glorified. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's a buzzword to go to therapy and to be healed and to, like, talk, like it sounds good now,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a part in that that's it takes so
It's
much, like,
messy
it takes a lot of reflection and a lot of patience and a lot of
and
internal
resilience.
work. Yep,
Mm-hmm.
yep. And I just thought that was super, super, super powerful. So, like, what has there been any, like, messiness for you in your healing journey that you was like, you know what, I have got to, like, address this if I really want to continue to, like, elevate my business, and I really want to elevate, the way that I'm serving in this way.
Yeah. I mean, there's been plenty, right? There's been plenty of seeing the ugly side of how I've been functioning, the
Mm.
ugly side, how I've been showing up in the world, right? And that's where being kind to myself have come into play, because when you don't know no better,
How you
you
gonna do
can't
it?
do it.
Yeah, yeah,
You can't do no better, right?
yeah.
So, yeah, there's been things of my behavior, my attitude. I used to be my college time. I was angry, and I just couldn't figure out why I was walking around angry. Like no one could have said anything to me. No one could like look at me wrong. I was ready to blow up, and that a lot of that had to do with how my mother and I functioned. I wasn't cursing her out. I wasn't fighting her. So I was mad at the world because I couldn't lash out on her,
You couldn't get
right?
that. Yeah.
And that just reflected on my adulthood. So now I became like the strong friend when literally it was just me just, you know, burying all of the trauma and all of the emotions that I didn't want to sit in down, 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 down below.
Yeah, yeah. That's deep, man. That's so good though. I mean, throughout this entire conversation, you and I have both been saying a word that is so powerful, which is intentional. Um,
Yeah.
we have to be intentional about our healing, and I think that it's so powerful for you as a woman, as a Black woman, to have created this space, um,
Thank you.
because one thing about us, and again, speaking from our own experience, just as much as we need our brotherhood, man, we can't function without Black women. You understand, and you guys set so much of the foundation for having these spaces. Um, I tell people all the time, I'm saying, listen, it's no way that I would have been able to go to therapy, if I wasn't married to a Black woman, and I damn sure wouldn't have been able to go to therapy.
Hey, what happened?
Can you hear me?
Okay, you went off for a second. Go
I
ahead.
did. I did.
Yeah.
Okay, my bad. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So what I was saying was that it's no way that I would have been able to go to therapy if I wasn't married to a Black woman, and I damn
Mm-hmm.
sure wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
have been able to, like, stay in therapy if I wasn't seeing a Black psychologist, a Black woman psychologist at that. I send you a lot of love and a lot of appreciation for what you're doing. I think what you're doing is
Thank you.
powerful. I want to continue to see you guys grow. I want to continue to see you grow. If I can do anything to help in what you're doing and supporting you, then I would definitely do that. Because it's beautiful. I'm glad that Ebony connected us. She
Me too. She was like, somebody's gonna be contacting me. I'm like, okay.
hey, she told me, she said, hey, she hit me up the day after we did our episode. She was like, John, I don't mean to be overstepping my boundaries, but I got somebody you need to talk to. What you mean? She's like, no, my homegirl, she good people's, and she put me on. I'm like, all right, bet. I'm definitely gonna reach out. You know what I'm saying? That
Yeah.
I like what she putting out there. So again, I thank you. Thank you so much for coming on. I
Of course, thank you for having me. I love what you're doing.
thank
This
you.
is amazing.
Appreciate it. So before we get out of here, man, I just got a couple, like, rapid questions I want to hit you with.
Okay, okay.
And then we'll get out of here. So, what are your intentions for the new year, for 2021? Not your New Year's resolutions, but your intentions. What are your intentions for this year?
Continue to grow and heal. That's it. Continue to grow and heal. I am intentionally going to continue to grow and heal.
Yeah, that is more than enough.
Hmm.
So that is
Because once that happens, everything, all the abundance come.
yeah, 100%,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
What is your purpose, and how is that connected to what it is that you are doing today?
What is my purpose?
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my
yeah.
God. My purpose is um my purpose is to um take the greatness out on people. You know, I'm doing it by creating this safe space for Black men. I want them to see how great they are, regardless of what the world tells them.
Yeah, that's dope. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's very dope. What is something about you that people will be surprised to know?
I'm a goofball. They say I'm so serious, but I'm legit not.
You goofy, huh?
I like to laugh in karaoke all day.
Hilarious. All right, okay, that's what's up. That's what's up. What what scares you?
um, what scares me? Hmm. Wow. Um, n- Not being able to hold on to my purpose.
Hmm,
Yeah.
that's deep.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's very deep. Um,
Yeah.
what is your favorite quote?
My uncle, live life, laugh hard, and love unconditionally.
Mm, okay, I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
What is the best advice that you ever received?
Um, Live unapologetically.
Mm, that's a good one. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a very good one.
Yeah.
If you could pick up the phone and call your 20-year-old self, knowing what you know today, what would you tell a 20-year-old Guildia?
Girl, you tripping. Things are gonna be okay. Girl, you tripping. Things are gonna be okay. Oh my God. It was like my junior year in college. I was a mess.
Mm,
I was a hot mess. I had just lost my grandma too. I was a hot mess.
mm.
But yeah, things will be okay.
Yeah, that's it. That's a fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
well. Listen, Guildia, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. This has been wonderful. It's been beautiful. Tell everybody where they can find you, how they can support you. What does the year look like coming up for you? I don't know. Hopefully we're gonna be able to get back, moving a little bit. Maybe hopefully by the spring, summertime. Hopefully we be optimistic. But just
Yeah.
tell people how they can get in contact with you, your social media handles, all of that good stuff.
So brothers and briefcases, brothers and briefcases, briefcases on Instagram, Facebook, and website. I ain't got no Twitter yet, but maybe this year. And I'm getting the YouTube channel together. Um, what do we have going on this year? I'm actually planning an event February, beginning of March, right? Even if I have to get everybody to get tested, I feel like we need it. We need to be able to have a physical event. Going on live have been great. Going on Zoom have been great, but again, that yearning for brotherhood, that yearning for connection, right? So hopefully, COVID will leave us alone for a second and people start being safer. If not, y'all can catch me on IG Live, having some amazing conversations. Subscribe to our website. Uh, all of the new things I'm going to be releasing there and sending you guys emails about it. Yeah, Guildia Lopez on Instagram for my personal, and that's all, folks.
Wonderful, wonderful. I love conversations like this where we intentional. We talking about healing. We talking about therapy. We talking about trauma, and we just talking about ways to improve and to be intentional about those things. So again, Guilty, man, thank you so much. Blessings to you. I send so much love your way.
Thank you.
You be safe out there in crazy New York City. Stay warm.
Thank you, because baby, it is cold.
Facts. Again, man, another episode of the Live Your Purpose podcast. I'm your host, John Morgan. Again, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check us out on audio platforms, Spotify, Anchor, and Apple Podcasts. Live Your Purpose podcast, baby. We out.